We had a question about the problem that said that the midpoint between the point 312 and another point is negative 7, 1. So we have 3 points. We have this point, we have another point, and we have this point. This point is the midpoint between this and this other point that we don't know. So what do we do? Well, we could begin by plotting these two known points. Okay, so we got 3 and 12, so let's say that 12 is about here. So that would put our point 312 about here. Okay, now negative 7, 1. Where's that? Well, that's going to be over here. Oh, let's say about this far. And 1, if this is 12, and this is 6, this is 3. So 1 would be about here. So I'm going to say it's about here. Now this, what's this point? Well, it says midpoint is negative 7, 1. Of course, you got to read the problem correctly. But this is the midpoint between this point and some other point. So there's your midpoint. Now, if this point is here and this is a midpoint between this point and some other point, where's the other point? Make your own sketch. Tell me where you think it is. Okay, well, you're going to have to tell yourself because you're not here synchronously with me, but it's going to be actually a little further out than this and probably a little higher up. So let's move it to about here. So here's the other point. At least we're going to let this represent the other point. Now, this point is clearly closer to this point than it is to this. I didn't leave myself enough board to actually sketch the other point. It'll probably be out here a little ways. But we can still tell where these points lie. You have this point, you have the midpoint, so the other point has to be out here, so this point can be in the middle. Okay, well, now what can we do? Well, we can do this geometrically. We can say, well, from this point to this point, we have a rise of, what, from 12 down to 1. That's a rise of negative 11. And a run of what? From 3 to negative 7. I didn't label those. From 3 to negative 7, well, that's negative 10. So the run is negative 10, rise is negative 11, and that gets us from here to here. Well, if this point is the midpoint between here and here, then it would take us the same rise and run to get to this point. Now, this rise looks a lot less than this. This run looks a lot less than this. Our graphs, our sketches aren't always going to be to scale, but we're still going to have a rise of negative 11 and a run of negative 10 to get from the midpoint to this other point. So from 312 to the midpoint, rise is negative 11, run is negative 10. From midpoint to the other point, rise is negative 11, run is also negative 10, because if this point is halfway between these, you're going to have exactly half the rise from here to here and exactly half the run from here to here will occur between either of these points and the midpoint. So, midpoint to the other point, we have this rise and this run. So, midpoint at at negative 7, 1 plus the other endpoint is at what? Well, the run from negative 7, if we got a run of negative 10, that's going to give us negative 7 minus 10. And the rise will be from the y-coordinate of the midpoint 1. And we're going to have a rise of negative 11. That's going to give us 1 minus 11. So the point is going to be negative 17, negative 10. Now, this is a geometric solution. And I'm not sure I've got the camera low enough for you to have seen my last step there. This is a geometric solution here. We're going to do an algebraic solution as well. Algebraically, the midpoint between x1, y1 and x2, y2 is what? Well, halfway between x1 and x2 and halfway between y1 and y2. What's halfway between x1 and x2? If we add two numbers and divide by 2, we get the number that's right between them. Also, same thing is true of y1 and y2. Now, x1, y1, let x1, y1 be 312. Midpoint is negative 7, 1, and the other point that we don't know is going to be x2, y2. What does this formula tell us? It tells us that the midpoint is negative 7, 1. Well, that implies that x1 plus x2 over 2 has to equal negative 7. And also that y1 plus y2 over 2 is going to be the other coordinate of our midpoint. y1 plus y2 over 2 is going to equal 1. Now, we know that x1 from this equation, x1 equals 3, y1 equals 12. So, x1, well, we know x1. x1 is going to be 3, y1 is going to be 12. So from this equation, we have 3 plus x2 over 2 equals 7. And from this equation, we have the y1 is 12, so it's going to be 12 plus y2 over 2 equals 1. We solve these equations. They're very easy to solve. 3 plus x2 over 2 equals 7, so that multiplying both sides by 2, 3 plus x2 equals 14. x2 is 14 minus 3, which is 11. And when I copied this, I didn't have my negative in front of 7. So I've got a negative here. This should be negative 14. And when I subtract 3, I get not negative 11, but negative 17. I left my negative out here, so I had to reinsert it here and then finish solving the problem. I was going to say that the 11 should have agreed with what we got here. It didn't, but now that I've made the correction, it does. Okay, the equation for y2. 12 plus y2 over 2 equals 1, so that 12 plus y2 equals 2, so that y2 equals 2 minus 12, which is negative 10, and that agrees, so that the other endpoint x2, y2 is negative 11, negative 17, negative 10, in agreement with the geometric solution.